Well, here it is, time again for What If Wednesday. And thank you for joining. Thanks for being part of our What If Up community here and for checking in every Wednesday. Wednesday is a time for us to come together to share like what's going on in your life, what challenges do you have? Is there anything that we can what if up with you to help you find your way through it, see it in a different way? It's also a chance for us to just pick some ideas, some things that might be showing up in your life and to practice the process of what if upping, practice the process of creating possibility around things that maybe are a little bit of a trigger point sometimes, possibly, maybe. Well, this week on What If Wednesday, I am excited to share with you a topic that keeps popping up in my life and in some of you that I've heard in our community. So I thought this is a great topic to talk about. And what comes to mind for me as I think about setting boundaries in a way that is healthy and that is joyful. Because it seems like every time I have a conversation around setting boundaries, it's after somebody has already felt like their boundaries have been violated and they're kind of not so happy about it, right? It makes me think back when I was little and my, I have an older brother and we used to sit in the back of the station wagon and we had this invisible line that went between my side of the back seat and his side of the back seat. And you know those conversations where it's like, Mom, he's on my side. And he would just he'd love to do that. He'd love to sort of poke at that invisible boundary because he knew that he could get a rise out of me. And it was fun. That was good times. And I would always go to my mom, set the boundary, enforce the boundary. So what if, now that we're all grown up, what if we get to set the boundary and we get to enforce the boundary? And what if we get to do it in a way that isn't exasperating? What if we can do it in a way that is powerful and empowering and joyful? And what if it gives us the space to truly take care of ourselves? So thanks for joining in. I'm going to head over to the comments and see who's here. Feel free to check in. Let me know who you are, what you're working on. What ideas do you have for setting healthy boundaries? Or are you in a position where somebody has kind of crossed that line and you'd like us to what if up some possibilities for you or anything that you've got going on your plate today? So our joyful Jeannie is not in the house with us today, but I do want to welcome, we've had all kinds of new people joining our community. So heartfelt welcome to all of you who are joining, especially if you're joining for the very first time. We are glad to have you here. And it is exciting to see how this community continues to grow and expand. And special thanks to all of you who've been sharing your posts, your videos, your pictures in our community, uplifting and inspiring all of us with what you're working on and who you are. So are you ready to do some what if upping? So let's look at this topic of boundaries. Now, I have seen this come up in lots of different ways. I think the clearest example that I've seen is, I'm a Facebook group moderator. And one of the things I've learned from doing Facebook groups, and Facebook's really good at helping you do this, is whenever you start a new Facebook group, you always start by setting the rules. So what are your rules? What are your rules for engagement? When people interact with you, what is your expectation for how you are to be spoken to, for how you are to be treated, for how you are to be considered? So that might be the first thing to think about is, what is your expectation? Are you clear on how you expect to be treated and responded to? And then second is, are you communicating those expectations? And what's great, when I'm in Facebook, it's, here's the rules, and I get to think through, okay, what are the rules for engagement in this group? And if there's ever anyone that violates any of those rules, it's not personal. I love you like crazy. But whenever you remove something that doesn't fit, Facebook will say, well, which of these rules did it violate? So, I'm like, oh, okay, well, that was number 3. And that's why I took that post out. So it's really interesting. If we were to take that analogy and apply it to our lives, like how clear are we on what our boundaries are? How well do we communicate those boundaries? And then 3, do we actually enforce them? Or are they just things that we say, but we really let people treat us however they want to treat us? So those are the 3 things to think about and to consider as we go into this What If Up session. And so great to have you join. If you have anything you'd like to share, or any possibilities you'd like to pop into the comments, would love to see what's up for you. So what if setting boundaries doesn't have to be reactive? It doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be frustrating. What if the process of deciding how you choose to be treated, what you expect of the universe is a joyful, creative process. What if it's fun? What if it's joyful? What if it feels really good? And what if it gives you all kinds of freedom to create because you choose how you show up? It makes me think of the story of Martin Luther King. There's a story about him. I don't know where he was, but he was with his group. And Martin Luther King, he dressed the part. I mean, you look at his presence and it's like, he just demands respect with his presence, right? That's the way he carried himself. And in the story that I heard, a man came up to him and said, "Hey, are you Martin Luther King?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And this white man, spit on him. And so Martin Luther King, instead of fighting back, instead of getting triggered, instead of getting flustered, what does he do? Because he owns his power, because he sets his boundaries, he pulls out his very nice handkerchief and he wipes the sweat off of his very nice suit and he gives it back to this man. And he says, "I think this belongs to you." We don't have to own that. What if we don't have to own that? What if we can just say, that is your stuff? That's not my stuff. And that doesn't belong in my space. So what if setting boundaries is that powerful and that simple? And what if it's just a matter of holding the expectation and then recognizing when those barriers have been crossed so that we can respond appropriately to our sense of who we are and how we choose to be seen in the world? So that's a possibility. What if we are very clear in our own knowing, our own expectations, and what if it conveys through our very presence? What if we get very clear in communicating? So I've had this happen to me just very recently where, so I had a relationship and it wasn't coming together as I had expected in my mind. And what I realized is, what if when they aren't honoring my boundaries, what if it's because I am either one, not communicating it powerfully enough so that they know what that boundary is, or two, I'm not enforcing it. So in their minds, I'm not really serious about it. So what if I can communicate clearly what those boundaries are, clearly and lovingly and joyfully? Oh, this is my boundary. And what if I honor that by enforcing it? What if I don't engage with those who would not see the boundaries or not respect the boundaries that I set? Sound good? So those are some possibilities. What comes up for you? What ideas do you have? What are some possibilities for how you can set boundaries, how you can enforce those boundaries, and do it in a way where we're not like taking the energy and like letting it weigh us down? Like, what if it's not something that's heavy or something that's hard? What if it's something that really is empowering, joyful, shall I say, and freeing? Because it really requires us. I love boundaries, setting boundaries, because it requires us to determine what do we allow into our space, and what are those things that maybe we allow people to just, where do we give in? Where do we say, oh, that's not that important? And where do we own our power? So that is the possibility for today. I want to, again, welcome all of you that are new to our community, and thank you for being part of this What If Up tribe. We are a place of possibility and hope, and we know that challenges come up. We know that if once you set boundaries, people will push those boundaries. Think of a 2-year-old. When they learn to say no, what are they learning? They're learning to set boundaries. And what does culture, what does society do to them? Like, oh, that's so terrible. Those terrible twos. They're learning to say no. They're learning to set boundaries. How terrible. What if it's not terrible? What if that's like one of the most important stages in our own development? And what if we continue to learn to say no to the things that we don't want? And the other thing that happens to those 2-year-olds is they learn how to poke the buttons. They learn where the boundaries are. And how do they learn that? They learn by crossing those boundaries and getting feedback. So what if we are very good and very clear at providing feedback when our own personal values have been crossed? And what if we can do that in a way that is loving and joyful? And what if it doesn't have to be angry and frustrated and overwhelming? So those are some possibilities to think about here on this What If Wednesday. Thank you so much for being part of this community. If there's anything that is up on your plate, anything that's showing up in your life, and you're like, wow, how could I see that differently? How could I reframe that in a more empowering way? bring it to this community. And particularly What If Wednesday is here for you. So anything that you need, any questions you have, we are here every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time and love connecting with you. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for being part of our community. Sending love to our joyful Jeannie who couldn't join us today, but you know she is here in this community dancing and singing and cheering for you at every step. And I love it. Let's close out with Janet Redford and this wonderful possibility. What if boundaries are the best examples of self-love and love to others? What if that communication is the greatest kindness we can offer to each other? So that's the possibility. And thank you for stepping into it, experimenting, playing with the ideas here on this What If Wednesday. Great to have you here. Have a great day, everybody.